In this video, I'm going to share my observations and opinions from attending Forum for the Future for Joomla earlier this month in Spain. Hey there, Joomla fans. Tim Davis here. I'm a Joomla fan too. And thanks for tuning in to Watch Me Work live stream number 62 here on the Basic Joomla Tutorials YouTube channel. If you've not subscribed to this channel before, please do so. Ring the bell to get notifications of new live streams and tutorials. And I suspect that maybe this topic may bring a lot of people from the Joomla community to my channel who haven't been here before. We have a little contest that I run each month. So I encourage you to sign up to the newsletter on my site. Let's go here. Go to basicjoomla.com/giveaways. If you sign up for the newsletter, which hardly ever goes out, you'll be automatically entered to win some great prizes from these Joomla companies and suppliers. And if you're one of those and want to donate a prize for the contest, then please contact me. Also, usually on these live streams, or often, I like to have people on to show their products or show things that they're doing on Joomla. So please, if you would like to take advantage of that, give me a ring. That would be great. All right, let's go back here to full screen. So it's going to be a little bit different today. Hello to everybody who is watching live. Usually have you say hi in chat, but I'm not going to pay attention to chat today until after I'm done talking and sharing all this stuff, because I want to just keep on the flow with my notes here and some of the things that I've been thinking on quite a bit before heading to the Forum for the Future, and also there and afterwards. So we'll change it up just a little bit. I do want to hear your opinions, do want to hear your feedback. So if you're watching the replay, put it in the comments below. Tim at basicjoomla.com, at basicjoomla.com on Twitter. Just reach out and touch base, and that will be fine. So all right, I just have to check a little window and status here. Everything seems to be going well. I want to say right from the outset that these are my opinions and impressions that I'm sharing. I'm not speaking officially for Joomla. I'm not speaking officially for anybody else. I'm speaking officially for me here on my channel and as a member of the Joomla community. So I just want to be clear about that, and hope that everybody understands that. Don't want to create any undue concern that anything I say is anything that officially happening in Joomla. So I just want to start by saying that at the Forum for the Future that was in Marbella, Spain, a lot of great people did a lot of hard work. I did a lot of hard work. I wouldn't necessarily include myself in the company of great people, but boy, there's a lot of work that took place in those 3 days, the Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. And you can begin to read the updates from those four sort of different focus groups that took place in Forum for the Future by going to volunteers.joomla.org or community.joomla.org. There were four groups. There was Reignite and Reengage, Professionalism, Marketing, and Production. And each of them is in the process of putting together a report on what came out of those meetings and a plan. And there's already, even today, I believe, Professionalism put out the report, and there's some interesting discussion taking place on Twitter. So for all the stuff that happened at that forum, I'll leave that for you to check out. I'll put the links in the video description here. Great people and a lot of hard work. It was so good to meet so many people that I have communicated with or talked with, have been on a live stream here on my channel, that Chayton and I have interviewed in the Joomcast podcast. It was just great. And I wish I could, there's so many I'd like to shout out that I got to see. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings by forgetting them, so I just won't. But I just want you to know, everybody, and especially those of you who were there and watching, it was great to meet you. It was great to work with you, to share meals together, and even to watch some of you sing karaoke that one night. So, when Chayton and I interview people on Joomcast podcast, and we ask, what's your favorite thing about Joomla? Most often the answer is the community. And certainly I was aware of that going into it, but it was so great to get to meet people and be with people and experience that community firsthand. And even in this digital age where we can communicate through video, through YouTube, through emails, through audio. Nothing beats like being in a room physically with someone to meet them and talk with them and be together. That's just the way that we are as human beings. So that was really great. So a shout out to everyone that I met. I say that because being there present with everybody also allowed me to see Joomla with an added third dimension. So you know that I've been using Joomla since before it was Joomla, Mambo. And so for about 15 years it's been Joomla. And so I just really love the software. And then in the last couple of years since I've been doing this full time and connecting with more people in Joomla, it has been great to get to know people and to have that sense of community. But to be together with everybody and to see not only how they are and their passion for Joomla, but also the differences that there are within Joomla, added a dimension to really see the community and experience it. And also being together with everyone and seeing things work with the leadership and with people who are present to really have a better understanding of what community means, that Joomla being a community means to a lot of people. It is not only something that's core to what Joomla is and who we are, but it is something that I think is holding incredible power and sway over our community and over what we're trying to achieve. And I'm going to talk about that. So I want to say that out of the first thing I want to say coming out of my time at Forum for the Future was that I now see that Joomla is a product produced by a community. Now, for those of you that are familiar with the beginning of Joomla, back when Mambo was being created, the company created it, they published it under the GPL license, which meant that it was open source, which meant that forever that software belonged to anybody who wanted to own it or do anything they wanted with it. And at some point there was some effort to try to control the content or the project or Mambo commercially and to exercise influence on the community of people who were involved in building it up. And so out of that came a group of people that wanted to fork the software, which basically was take that open source software as it was and start a new project with it and proceed from there. And of course, we know that new project was Joomla. And so Joomla is software, it's a product, but it's created by a community that holds very strongly to the values that the software should be free to everyone under the GPL license, open source, and also that people can contribute to it, that they will not be excluded from contributing to it. Maybe I'm missing some of the finer points, but I'm a big picture, broad brush stroke kind of person. And so when in discussions and watching and observing, I noticed that how strong the original purpose and the DNA of Joomla is with respect to community. Community in Joomla does not just mean we really like each other and get along. Community means that we're standing for this movement of the software not being controlled commercially and that people not being controlled commercially. And that is really important to see because that is something that comes into factor in many of the decisions and many of the perspectives and many of the arguments that people make about Joomla. So Joomla is a product produced by a community. A couple of weeks ago, I asked in a Slack group that I was in, and just let me comment about community. There's a ton of stuff in Joomla that I am no expert in. Those of you who are regulars for this channel know that I'm not a coder. I don't have experience in releasing large software projects or small software projects. I don't know what goes in. There's just so many things about Joomla as a product, as software that I just really don't have any understanding of. But I will tell you something that I do know a lot, and I would even dare to say know more about than a large percentage of people in the Joomla community, and that is what it takes to have community and to lead a community. I have 3 decades of experience in that as a leader of a community, not a business, but of a community. And so when I look at Joomla, I look at it through that lens. And I think it's an important lens to really understand, and an important lens to admit that you don't understand if your strength is lying in somewhere else. I'm not saying that if your strength lies somewhere else, you don't know anything about community. But we all can't be good at everything. And just like I'm strong in that area, but weak in maybe other areas, I think that in our community, we have people who are very strong in other areas, but very weak in community. And it's important, just as it's important for me to know and admit that there's things I don't know about releasing software, I think in Joomla, especially these days, we desperately need people who are good at other things but not good at community to just accept that that's an area of weakness for them and to let others lead. Being good at community, software, or anything does not mean we're valuable as human beings or not. It doesn't mean that we have a place in this or not. It just means that we need each other, and we also need to exercise self-control to give way to others who know more than us for the common good. So I'm in a Slack group, and I asked this question: is there a difference between an open source product and a community? And if there is a difference, what is it? One of the answers that came out of that was this: an incredible explanation and a link, I don't have it ready here, to a website that describes what an open source project is and what an open source project does in order to function and give feedback loops for people and forums. And they said, and that all of those things create community. And then they concluded that an open source project and community are the same thing. I 100% disagree with that conclusion, and this is why. When people get together to play soccer and form a soccer team or a soccer league, they end up having community. When people like model trains and get together and build layouts and go and set up layouts in malls and stores and that, they have community. Even terrorists have community. Community is not the thing that people are doing together. It is the human connection that they feel with each other while they're doing that. Community is what happens in us as human beings, the way that we are created to connect with and get along. We all want to find our tribe. We all want to find the group where not only has the same common interests and values as us, but where we can contribute and our contribution is accepted or appreciated, even if it's not, even if it doesn't end up as part of what's happening. We are accepted as part, and as human beings, we seek that. That's the way that we're created. A project is not the same as community. And so Joomla is a community, but the whole Joomla project and the product that we are making together as community, that's not community. And the reason that I say that is this, is that the principles of community they have to be foremost in how we maintain and lead and run and coexist in community. So if you just take the principles of business and apply them to a community group, it ends up disastrous, because the principles of business and treating others is very different than community. Now, sure, in business you have rules of getting along and you have HR departments and there's overlap. But if you go to a community and just apply business practices to people, you end up hurting them, you end up creating pain, you end up creating conflict, because everybody's trying to have a spot of significance. And many of the rules of business are kind of just hard and cut and cold. In community, you can't fire people from community. Although, and I'll probably talk about this later, in community, there is a time to send some people away. But if we don't recognize the separateness of community, regardless of the project, then we are going to, we as a community are going to suffer greatly as people struggle to get along, but don't follow the principles of community. So what would an example, a different example be? Let's say it would be like going to the hospital but not being treated with the medicine that's needed for your condition. So in community, if community dynamics and realities and truths are not recognized or accepted or applied, then community is not nourished and is not healthy. So that's, the principles of community must be foremost. And so one of the things that we need to understand in community is what I've already mentioned, is that the DNA of the community. What brought the community together, and what were their values? What is at work? Now, so for us, one of the things we hold in common in Joomla is this desire, this passion that software be available for everyday people for free, and that people can contribute to it, and we can be part of this great movement together. That's what we value, and we all get together. Now, the challenge is when what the community is putting together is not needed anymore, or is changing, or is shifting. Because then what happens inside of the community is they begin to say, hey, they begin to see what they do, the project, as their identity. And so they feel threatened that if the project changes, if the focus changes, that threatens us. That threatens my place of belonging. And I don't want to end up not belonging. So we must preserve what we do in order to preserve what we share. That is very, very counterproductive. It's also very dangerous to a community continuing on effectively together. Let me give you an example of the Hutterites in Manitoba. Manitoba is a province here in Canada. So the Hutterites, which are a religious community, they made their living building huge barns for other farmers, for themselves, for commercial companies. And the provincial government in Manitoba, and so anyways, so the Hutterites, they had community, they had their community together, but what they did together was make these barns. The provincial government said, we're not going to allow any more large, big, huge pig barns anymore. We don't want, it's just bad for the environment, it's bad for whatever, we're not, you can't build those anymore. And the Hutterites said, if you take that away from us, we are going to take away your manufacturing jobs. And so I got to visit this Hutterite farm, this Hutterite community, and I kind of thought, wow, this is going to be cool. I'm going to see some goats and some sheep. I'm going to see a huge a production facility. And what I ended up walking into was a massive building that was full of state-of-the-art plastic injection molding. They were making not only things for farms and for agricultural, but parts for windshield wipers. I walked in the front area, and they had a 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter, or 1 yard, 1 yard by 1 yard, 1 yard, print 3D printer, where they were printing prototypes of their parts for molds. They even had a webcam on it so they could watch it from the office. Now, if you know Hutterites, and there are Hutterites like this as well, they're the ones that shy away from technology. In Alberta, there's Hutterite communities that don't even have grass, because then they don't have to use a lawnmower, which is, I can understand that when I have to cut my grass again. But my point is this about the Hutterites, is their community, but when things changed for them staying together, they changed and went with the opportunity. That's that's really important. If you understand that your community is who you are together and that you have your common goals and how you're going to live together, then you can produce different things. You can shift, you can pivot and do other things, still holding on to your values, but without being threatened by doing something different. So the Hutterite community in that case, they didn't see that. Well, they actually saw the waning and the loss of what they were doing as a threat to their community. So in order to keep it together and to keep going on their principles, they did something different. Another danger of communities is that they exist in a silo. Now, a silo here in Canada is probably a silo all the way around the world. Big, tall, cylindrical thing that you keep grain in or seeds in. But the whole frame of the whole context of saying living in a silo, basically, when you're in a silo, you don't know what's happening in the outside world. You can't hear what's going on in the outside world. All that you have for your opinion and input is is what other people in the silo are telling you. And one of the dangers of community that mistakes it's what it does as being community is that you start to end up inside of a silo and you lose track of what people out in the world are saying about you or think about you or how they view you. You basically end up with a lot of people drinking the same Kool-Aid, and you think it tastes great and you think it's all good, and you just keep going on. You say, hey, aren't we great here in our silo? But things are different outside. This really struck me. One of the breakout sessions that I was in, there was somebody that attended the conference, the forum, and he had done quite a bit of research contacting people outside of Joomla, outside of who was attending the forum. He spoke to someone whose job it is or who is well known for connecting large corporations with software that they can use in their business to run their businesses. And a person asked this other person about Joomla, and she said that she would not recommend Joomla to other companies because because Joomla is so toxic. And so the person that told this story, having talked to this person in that breakout session, said, so that's someone who recommends other companies to use a CMS or to use software in their business. And that's so a company with that, if that person's not even recommending Joomla, Joomla is never going to have a company come along with $10 or $15 million to develop the software or to adapt the software or to use the software, install it and maintain it, or do everything, whatever is needed for that company. And a couple of people in that breakout session cheered and said, we don't want that money. That was a real eye-opener for me. It's an eye-opener for me because it gave me insight into the culture of Joomla and into one of the main thinking points, or one of the main, I don't want to say factions, because that makes that thinking seem like outside of everybody else. But if we see different factions or pie slices or whatever, there are people in Joomla that do not want any corporate money to help Joomla to be usable by that corporation. And that sort of took me back. I understand that part of the DNA of Joomla is that money or businesses should not control the software. I get that. And I understand that therefore we also, the original DNA of Joomla is that people should not be excluded by business or because of money. But that is viewing what we do and our community, our culture, as the exact same thing. Instead of pivoting and saying, hey, well, look, we could make this really great for the people and great for the people that want to contribute, by having these resources, and I can't, probably not fair for me to explain the whole reasons why, because that's someone else's thinking and reaction. But there's this resistance and pushback, something that could help, but it's so foreign to what the original purpose was. Even 15 years later, it's something that is just rejected. And that's, I think, silo thinking. There's also that came out during the time in Spain, people who are looking to try to do other things, are looking for other directions, are looking for ways to keep up or to offer something that's consistent where software is going. Some people just pointing out that the CMS war has already been won. Sure, WordPress won it. That new ways of adding data, new ways of doing things are coming along. The younger generation is looking for new interfaces. Companies are looking for new things to stay current. And yet it's a struggle for some in Joomla. I won't say struggle, that's not fair. Some in Joomla see that as, no, that's not who we are. We are this, and we're not moving in that direction, aren't progressing in that moment. That's for people to discuss and debate. I don't have a solid answer for that. I do know a direction that I would go in if it was required. But I do want to just point out this, is that whole idea, that whole debate that's taking place of where to go or what to do or how to change or what should we should embrace in Joomla, or whether we should take money or try to do this or try to do that, or who we are, we really need to separate our view of us as community from the product that we put out. Because if we are in a silo and say to ourselves, hey, this is the product that we make, it is safe, secure, there's even 3% of people in the world that are using it for websites, and so this is what we do because this is who we are, and we don't do this, so that's not who we are, then we miss out on moving forward. That little story that I just told you too, that recounted, also brings up the issue, and that is that when we talk about silos, inside the silo, you kind of just look at what you want. But if you're not paying attention to what's being said on the outside of the silo, then you are putting your community at risk. You're putting everything at risk. The fact that Joomla is perceived as toxic by those outside of our community, and I believe, I think there's people within the community that see it toxic, and I certainly think it's toxic to a degree as well. The fact that there are people out there that see that, and that we don't acknowledge it, or we don't recognize that it's an issue, that it's seen that way, and it is that way because of how we're doing community, or how we've misunderstood what it takes to be in community, really threatens us in what we value together, in being together, and threatens the project that we're a part of. Something about communities when they are faced with change, or after a number of years that they have been together, is that they can become so comfortable with who they are and not embracing change that eventually, when change needs to be embraced, or some people in the community say, hey, there's a change happening outside the silo here, we need to move in that direction. Communities can be very slow to deal and to manage behavior of people who are problematic, who are trying to preserve their place or preserve the old ways or what they perceive is the community. And what begins to happen there is that it leads to low morale, and people begin to leave. And you'll notice that quite often the people that leave the first are the healthiest. Sometimes they're, certainly if they're the healthiest and talented and they leave, it has a real impact on everything. And within the silo of community, you can say, well, okay, and you can find something wrong with them. But that just sort of continues to perpetuate the problem of people who are resisting change. Now, change, like the old saying, don't expect change. The only thing you should expect change from is a vending machine, and even then you don't get your change. But when people are resistant to change and start to act out, if that is not act out in inappropriate ways, if that's not dealt with within the community, then it begins to become toxic. Not only that, but it might also begin to attract other people who want to continue, who like to be a big fish in a small pond and swim around and beat people around or push people around or gobble up whatever they want. And they look, because their behavior is not going to be challenged. In business, they would just be fired. They would be fired for going on social media and taking a huge rant at someone and going totally over the top. But in a community, it'd be like, oh, well, this person's contributed so much, or this person has this skill, or we need this, or we've already lost so many people, we can't lose more people. And then things just go downhill, and it ends up toxic. The world is seeing, the outside of Joomla can see the conversations that we're having with each other, the way that we are treating each other. Interestingly, at Forum for the Future, this was the topic that was discussed during meals at a table, in the breakout session, just a break time, sitting outside, walking. This was the topic that came up, this toxicity, the way that people, the way that some people treat other people, and just how it's just there. It was even brought up by comment. Dark Schnegg made a great comment one day about the way that some of the communication and interaction takes place between our developers and coders and social media, and that it needed to change. It was great, and everybody clapped. But there was no specific addressing or plan of that came out of Forum for the Future. The four groups put out great stuff, but what I'm saying here today is that there's a bunch of people in Joomla, in our community, who needs to stop shitting where we eat. Let that sink in. There's a bunch of people in Joomla who need to stop shitting where we eat. People outside of Joomla looking at us and how we get along and how we are together, they don't say, oh, Joomla is insecure. They know it's secure. They don't say, oh, the code's crap. They know it's great code. They don't say, oh, that feature, they have terrible features. No, they know we have great features. They look at us and they say, look how toxic that is. I don't want anything to do with it. And I'm certainly not going to recommend that to a business. Nobody leaves Joomla because the coding's too hard or it's not secure, they don't like the features. The most common reason why they leave is, I don't need that anymore. I don't need that in my life. I don't need this anymore. A great example of this I experienced, so I mentioned I'm in that Slack group. So I traveled from to get to Forum for the Future. I left Victoria, flew to Vancouver. We had rare snow on the west coast of Canada. So the plane left late. So I got to Newark, New Jersey. My plane to Dublin had taken off. I was 2.5 hours at the Air Canada bench trying to get rebooked to a flight. Anyways, eventually I said, well, can you get me to Madrid? I'll take the fast train down. So I get so Newark to Heathrow to Madrid. Take the subway over to the fast train, take the fast train down to Malaga. I get out and I'm just about there. I'm one taxi ride away from where the forum is going to be. And I look at my phone, I open it up, and I get a message from the Slack group I'm in, and they're just totally slagging this Forum for the Future. And the people taking part in it now and blah, blah, or that is planning or whatever. Da, 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 da. So after like 30 hours of travel, I look at this thing, and and it's, I just said, thanks. I just traveled 30 hours, just got off the train. Thanks, guys. So you see, within our community, when even in our, and that's I don't know how many people are in that 40 or 50 people. We need to have some decency towards each other in communicating about things. It's some people are only happy unless they bitch about stuff. And those people need to find something new so they can have happiness in their life. If there's something that is going to undo Joomla or affect Joomla, it's this toxicity that persists, that is allowed to go unchecked. Although I know that there are people addressing it, and that does come up in through code of conduct things. But it's just, you know what? The things that we say in public about this thing that we're involved in and that we value so much, other people are reading, and when they see it, it's like, no, I don't have anything to do with that. And certainly, as someone who has used Joomla for years, and only in the last couple of years has really been contributing through some of the things that I do back to the community. When I see the way that people are and that was just accepted, it's not a big motivator for me to put myself in the line of fire. Because I can separate community and the product. I can separate this incredible thing that I really, really love. I love Joomla. I love the people in it. I love this working together. I love what we have. But I am not going to destroy my life or just bring a big, huge burden in my life just so I can have that. That's dysfunctional. I'm 54 years old. A little bit of a pension. I have to work for the next 11 years and get ready for retirement so that I can have a decent living. I don't, I'm not looking for drama, and I'm not looking to, I don't need that either. So this issue of community is super, super important for us to understand and address in Joomla. And it may very well be that the difficult choice that we'll have to make at some point as a community is to move ahead without some people. One of the challenges of community is that if you're in it long enough, you tend to perceive a currency that you have, or you tend to perceive a currency that someone else has or that you should give to people who have been around for a long time and contributed a lot. It's almost as if it violates community to not address things that those people are perhaps doing well into the project that is actually hurting the project and hurting the community. Well, so-and-so been around for a long time, but they're kind of getting older and they're not all totally on their game, and we just put up with them. Now, listen, I'm not saying that we should just all have a vote like Survivor and vote some people off the island. And certainly, we need to be considerate of each other. That's what, look, think of some of the principles of community. An unconditional acceptance or love for each other. Exercising forgiveness when other people ask for, when they apologize for something or ask for forgiveness. Reconciling. Working in relationship with people that we've had conflicts with so we get back so that it's like nothing ever happened. Working and cooperating because we know that these principles are right. And so when there are people that are creating problems, there are people that are creating issues and even threaten our community and the project that we do as a community, we still have to behave in community with those people. We have to consider what's going on in their life. What's going on in their health, what's going on in where they live. I mean, we all live in different parts of the world. But at some point, it may become necessary to remove people who have contributed a lot, but who, for whatever reason, are being persistent in creating problems and are pulling the whole community down. That is the dark, difficult side of community. When to know that the whole community can take the hit in order to help this person, but when also to know that the community cannot withstand any more from that person or from those people. I'm not speaking about software. I'm not speaking about how to release software. I'm not speaking about coding. I'm not speaking about marketing. I'm not speaking about anything. I'm speaking about community and getting along with each other, but also what is required for community to persist. So when I watched, and I'm just about to wrap up this part, when I got to participate in this awesome experience, I spent a lot of time watching, and I noticed that Joomla functions quite a bit like a small church. That's where my 30 years of experience have been in small churches. Small churches are wonderful. I love small churches. I love the people in them. It's great. So I'm not down on that. I'm not down on small organizations. However, a situation that often happens in small churches and small organizations is that silo that I talked about. And I want to just in wrapping up on this point, I just want to tell you another story from the conference. Someone from the forum. Someone mentioned in one of the full sessions that they were depressed about Joomla. They were depressed about what was going on in Joomla. They were just depressed thinking about the future of Joomla. And later on, somebody said, "Don't be depressed about Joomla. We still run 3% of the internet, of 3% of websites. We still are fast. We still are secure," and repeated all the things that we are as Joomla. But I know that person was not depressed because we have less market share than WordPress, or that person was depressed because they look at things and see that maybe Joomla won't change with respect to overcoming this big threat that faces it. So, if you can imagine, some of you can, if you can imagine a small church sitting around and a couple of progressive people in the church say, "We've been listening to everyone out in the community and they say that we're not a friendly church. They look at us, they've even visited and no one talked to them, and they saw and they just thought, no, that's not a church that wants new people." Then there's some more traditional people, a different group of people sitting there, and they say, "You know what? Our church is friendly. I have lots of friends here. I love this place. I feel very comfortable." Those people that say, "That's all right, they can go somewhere else," because we are a friendly church. And you know what happens? The people that are trying to make a change and trying to speak about what's happening and the perceptions outside, they get super discouraged because the people inside that silo understand that in order to become more friendly, in order to overcome what is seen by the outsiders, they have to change. They might have to give up some of the things that make them comfortable. They might have to give up some of their position. They might some of their leadership position. They might need to give up the focus and less on them and more on other things. And I think the same dynamic is happening in Joomla right now. There are people that are looking at how we're perceived and at opportunities and directions we could go as a community and continue and be successful as a community, putting out a successful product, whatever that may be. But there are other people, it's like, no, we're community, we're comfortable, this is really nice. And those people, we don't care if they have money. We don't care whether or not they want to use our product. We are who we are, and that's good enough for me. And that, on the plus side, and I know this about small churches too, it's very hard to kill a small church. They will just linger on forever and ever, being happy together until most of them reach the age that they can't drive anymore at night to get to a meeting. And so at the same time that I see that this is an issue that we need to address and really needs to change, and I'm not saying that somebody out there needs to change it. I'm saying we all we all need to take this to heart and change the way that we are towards each other. I'm not saying that Joomla is just going to go away. It'll linger. It'll stay. It'll stay as long as there's people that want to keep things the same, as long as there's people that mistake that what we do is community, and so therefore all we have to do is focus on what we do. It can linger on. But listen, a lot of people don't want to linger on, and that's why they're depressed, because they love the relationship, they love the connections, but they realize they can't stay if it continues going down that path. Here in Canada, as I'm sure in other northern countries, when the lakes freeze over, they don't freeze over where I live, but when the lakes freeze over, you take a plow out onto the ice and you plow an ice rink. The guy plowing the ice rink does so with the door open. And that's because as soon as he hears the cracks, he bails, because he knows his truck's probably going into the ice and he does not want to go under the ice with it. There's a lot of developers right now in Joomla that are programming for Joomla, that are sticking with Joomla, but they've got the door open. They've got the door open, and you can see they're offering stuff for WordPress now. They're offering stuff for Drupal. They're doing other things in their business. They're playing it safe because it's their livelihood. It's the food on the table. It's the clothes on their kids' back. It's their retirement. It's what they do. And when they look at the toxicity and some of the circles that's going round and round and round in Joomla, the way people treat, they say, there's not a future, a prosperous future, a healthy future, a future that I want within this group that I love. And that's the huge struggle that a lot of people are going through. And so that's one of my biggest takeaways from that incredible, wonderful time that I had with people there at Forum for the Future, is that we've got to start seeing that community needs to be maintained with the principles of community, not the principles of software or a project. All right, so I'm just going to, and speaking of the project, I'm going to wrap up with these few thoughts. Having, as you know, not a programmer, don't know about releasing large projects, still don't even know how to test complicated bugs in Joomla. I could probably figure out how to test a language thing or something like that. I think that with regards to Joomla 4, we have got to get Joomla 4 out in some form. Now, the great news is the production team has that was meeting, the production focus or breakout group has a really good plan to, by the end of February, middle of February, to identify the showstoppers for Joomla 4 and to just set them aside or drop them just so that we can get Joomla 4 out. I think that's really great. Developers, if I was a developer, I would not be planning all kinds of new features until Joomla 4 came out. It's taken so long. Really, none of us, we just can't say, hooray, finally Joomla 4 is out. It's great and it's awesome. We've got to get it out so that we can continue and build from there. Joomla 4.0 can come out. 4.1 can come out with a new feature that we were thinking of adding. Again, it needs to come out. And there needs to be an easy migration. I think everyone realizes that. Going from 3.9, or if it's 3.10, as the plan was to have 3.10 and then extensions work in that will work in 4. But there has to be a migration, and extensions have to be, they have to work. Now, again, in Joomla 4. Now, again, let me just say, I know very little of what I'm saying. I'm merely speaking from the perspective of, while the world is waiting, well, if the world is waiting, some are waiting, within our community waiting, we've got to get this out, and then we can build on it. Otherwise things are stuck. So check out the report for production and see what the plans are. Check out all of those report. But I think even more importantly that when we put 4.0 out, we need to express publicly that somewhere along the way this whole thing came off the rails. That whatever's happened, whoever, doesn't matter, that we as a community will just say, Joomla 4 has taken so long and we recognize this, but you know what? We're moving forward. We're addressing it, and you watch. And then we do a bunch of smaller releases more regularly, bringing features on. Check out what they say in professionalism about hiring someone who's a project manager who can give direction. I think myself that is a great way to go. Not everybody likes it. It goes back to the DNA of Joomla and our origins, but I think so. I think that, the world, we don't need to tell the world that Joomla 4 is super late and something's happened along the way. But we do need to tell the world that we realize that something happened. Because if they're going to have confidence in us, if they're going to have confidence in Joomla, if they're going to stick around or consider it as an option, they need to know that we're doing the thinking and the introspection and the looking into ourselves that is necessary for us to remain a vibrant and active and a forward-moving community producing software that is needed. Not a particular type of software, but the software with its features that are needed. Look, I just want to show you one thing here. And then I will stop going here. This picture here, I took it. I went down one morning. It's a sunrise because we were in Spain, so the beach is on the left. I can't imagine anywhere in the northern Mediterranean where the beach would be on the right at a sunrise. But the thing about a sunrise is that when you look at a sunrise, if you look at a picture, if you don't know where it's at, you don't know whether it's a sunrise or it's a sunset. And I think the same thing with Forum for the Future. Just let me reiterate. Tons of good people doing hard work, coming out with great ideas, great directions. So I'm not poo-pooing any of that. But it might just be that what we see as a sunrise, if we don't manage it properly, if we don't deal with this community stuff, it's actually going to be a sunset. It'll be a sun going down on Joomla. Joomla's best days, maybe it already has. I feel sad saying that, but I think that we have to give ourselves permission to understand that that's a risk and a possibility, and sort out how we do community together so we can get on cooperating and come out with a product instead of have nothing coming out that's conflicted like we are. It's up to each of us in the community whether this is a sunrise or a sunset moment for Joomla. And that's the feeling and sense I had going into Forum for the Future, and that I had there and very strongly had afterwards. So there's a lot of comments happening in chat. I just want to thank you all for sticking it out to this point, listening to me. This was work for me, going to Forum for the Future. I know it was in Spain in January, and it's my first time traveling internationally. I mean, I loved it. I enjoyed it. But it was also work. I did it to understand what my business was based on, to understand where it was going, to try to get insight on where it is going, where it might go or where it might not go, and to understand more of how it was working. It was great. And so I really wanted to take this time to share that with you, because I really believe it was so, the insights and the exposure and what I saw and experienced was so great for me. I wanted to share that with you. And just in closing, before I look at your comments, to reiterate, I love Joomla. I am a Joomla fan. I prefer to use Joomla for building sites. I'm not going to use it exclusively anymore, though. But I am there. And I want to see it succeed. I want to see it be healthy. I want to see it be everything that can be and should be. And so all of this that I'm sharing is out of concern and desire for Joomla's benefit for myself and for all of you and for the community, but also for the project, because the software that we use, the businesses that are based making extensions, the whole ecosystem that needs to be healthy, and that needs to be preserved moving forward, and the two will give to each other. if we're just a community and we don't make anything, what's the purpose? If it's just a product and we aren't getting along together or connected, or we aren't helping each other because that's part of our DNA, what is the purpose? What's the purpose in that? So thank you for your time, and thank you for listening. I'm going to scroll back up the top of comments here, and we'll work our way down. So let's switch here. Switch glasses, chat on the right. Here we go. Zing up. Okay. All right. Hello to everyone. Chuck, Brian, Mahan, Mary. Liam says, Mary says, preach it, Tim. You agree 100%. Great comments. You can see examples of this from Liam, not just within the community, but between project contributors and the larger user base. One only has to look at some of the comments on PRs on Git or on the help forum to see the negativity. Yeah. Stephen Britton, hey, it's been a long time. Great to see you again. Good to see you, Stephen. Joomla needs to grow its user base. We should not keep Joomla a secret. God forbid become an all WordPress world. Yeah, there's a lot of talk. What is our user base? Who are our users? And you know what? If as a community we decide that we don't want big companies, we don't want, if we just want to be, if we say we're going to be the web design solution for small businesses, educational institutions, check out like the Engage and the Reignite and Engage discussion. It's great stuff about how to help to connect with educators to teach Joomla for making web pages to younger generation and things like that. Yeah. So if we decide that our user base, this is who we're going, if we don't want to be this, then we're only going to be this, then let's figure that out. But again, at some point as a community, we have to say, okay, this is it. And some people will say, oh, that's too narrow for me, I'm out. Okay. Because fighting is not going to work anyways. If some people say, oh, it's too broad, I'm out, then okay, because we've got to move forward. But yeah, we need to, there was a lot of talk about user base and who our users are. We need to figure out who they are and who we're targeting. Chuck says he agrees it is taking too long. I think it's probably a comment about Joomla 4. John says, I don't believe Joomla has lost to WordPress. It's lost because Joomla doesn't know what product it wants to be. Joomla is not best for small sites. That's more easy to do with WordPress, Wix, or other simple website services. John says, I strongly believe Joomla should focus to be a strong and powerful business platform. It already has a lot of vital components to be that. Stephen says, Joomla 4 was supposed to be released in November at the Joomla World Conference in London, but the conference was canceled due to Brexit. Yes, and it was not going to be released. The way things are now, it would not have made it by that time. Unless, well, I mean, yeah, okay, maybe if it was, and that was delayed, I don't know. Oh, I don't know why it would be delayed, but it's not ready now, so it wasn't. Steven says, you've played with Joomla 4 beta and it seems fine to me. Do you know where I can find the list of showstoppers? I would, here, let me post 2 links here, all right? Volunteers.joomla.org, all right? That's one there. So you can read reports from different things there. There is a few things that you'll see. And then also this link here, this came out of community.joomla.org. By the way, I don't understand. I think this should all be one big massive site, but that's just a little thought that I have there. So there's another link. So there's their report on professionalism. All right. Read up on some of this stuff. Go to volunteers.joomla.org and create a profile as well. Yeah. All right. So Stephen played with Joomla. Emmanuel, you've seen that place. Yes. Emmanuel was there. Emmanuel Denon. Stephen, I have to admit that you use WordPress for small sites, but for any project that requires more than 20 pages, you use Joomla. Yeah, so I'm coming back to the left coast of Canada, and I have a client that I pitched in before I went to Spain, and he is a mortgage broker. He has a mortgage brokerage, And so I'm going to have I have a project to do for him, and I decided that I was going to do it in WordPress because I need to learn WordPress. I need to learn WordPress. I do not want to have all my eggs in one basket. And so, having said that, again, I'll repeat: love the community, love the people, love the software. But if this toxicity does not get sorted out, I'm not interested in hanging around for that. Maybe that might be appealing to someone in their 20s or 30s, but listen, I'm an old tired man at 54, and I want to be happy. I don't want to be around people that are dragging me down. I can be happy making web pages, and I'll go join a local sports team or something until they get nutty in their community too. I mean, it's just the human condition, right? WordPress. Yeah. So Mary says this backstory about toxicity is new to her and disconcerting for obvious reasons. Thank you, Tim, for this heads up and for sharing your thoughts and meditations. Yeah. And so, when I say, all right, I don't need to keep saying it the same way. When I say don't poop where you eat, I don't want to be doing that here right now. But part of my going was someone that really didn't fully understand. I knew there was stuff going on in the background, and you see the odd chat between key people in Joomla or programmers. But I went because I wanted to get a really great understanding of what was going on. And when I was there, I realized, wow, this is the best product for me, the thing that I know the best. But it's not responsible for me to just, with a cult-like zeal, say this is the only thing I'll ever use, especially if things don't get sorted out. And I'm not saying that Joomla is on the verge of collapse. I think I said that earlier, that it's not. But having said that, we have to be smart in our businesses, and so I've been picking up some WordPress people. They're looking for help. Picked up a client that had a site that was hacked. They needed some help with that, and I switched them to Joomla. But I have other clients that don't want to be switched. They want to stay with WordPress, and I need the money. I want the money for the income, and I can make money on Joomla as well, and will continue to do so. But I'm not going to build everything just on one thing with a blind zealousness, saying, "Oh, this is who we are. This is who I am." So for me personally, one of the things that I realize is that Joomla is not who I am. It's something that I belong to and feel very connected to and have a place in and love. But it cannot be who I am, or else I'm going to live in the little Joomla silo here in my business, and something's going to change. Let me tell you, I'm going to share another link with you guys here. This is a really great book that got shared with me. I'm going to post a link to it. Phil Taylor shared this with me when I was visiting him and talked about it. And I read it on the plane. I just ordered it. Where the heck did it go? It's a little tiny book. It's somewhere here. It's called Who Moved My Cheese? Read that book. It's about adapting to change. Who moved my cheese book? Oh, maybe is that it? Oh, here we go. No, that's not the book. Anyways, I just opened it. It came from Amazon. I put it down somewhere. My desk. I hid all the mess away so you guys can't see. Who Moved My Cheese? It's a great little story about anticipating and dealing with change in your life or in business, and check it out. That's the link to it on Amazon. Here it is here. The Amazing Way to Deal with Change in Work and in Your Life. Who Moved My Cheese? It is a little thin, tiny book. There's not a lot of print in it, and there's some cheese pictures. I read this on the way back, and it's really great. Okay, let's see. I just get back up to Mary's comment. Okay, yes, great. You'll check that out. Good, Stephen. Liam, people seem to jump to WordPress as the alternative to Joomla. Any thoughts on Drupal? No, I don't, Liam. I don't know Drupal at all. And it was interesting because you get in discussion as we discuss community or what this project is or who we are as a community. We get looking. So, for instance, if Joomla hires, go on Twitter and follow the tweet today. Our lead release person, George Wilson. Let's see. Go to Twitter and search for the hashtag Joomla, of course. Okay. And hey, look, I got quoted there. Phil Taylor quoting me. Anyways, he is. Let's see where it is. I don't know. Anyway, so the release from the professionalism group went out today, and he was responding as the team lead for releasing Joomla 4. I forget the exact terms. His reactions, his feelings to it, which is great. It's good. Good. I mean, we need to communicate and have those feelings. So one of the discussions in that is, well, how is this going to work to have paid people telling volunteers what to do? It's done in many organizations. It's done, first of all, a church, a synagogue, a mosque. A lot of nonprofits have people paid. Even I was reading a bit of the discussion, even volunteer fire departments have a paid chief to help keep things together. One of the advantages of paying someone to do something in a not-for-profit or in a volunteer organization is that you can get someone who knows more than knows more perhaps than the collective community, or knows more than certain people who are in charge of things, and you're buying their time so that they will coordinate and help things move forward because they have experience. For me, I think why not? Now, I can understand that if I'm doing a job volunteering somewhere and someone says, and I feel really good about it, and I'm not speaking anything specific, I'm speaking about myself here, and someone came along, hey, we hired someone, you have to listen to them. If I'm volunteering and I don't want to have to listen to other people because I just want to be involved, that's totally legit, because people have work. If my volunteering is something that I do so I can feel I'm contributing outside of work where I don't get to contribute or don't have a say, then maybe I don't want that in my volunteer role. But that doesn't mean that it's necessarily a bad thing. And so for me, and I certainly have clients that have gone to other people for things because they didn't feel that I could do everything that they wanted me to do. I just have to figure that out. I just have to try to understand that relationship or what's going on. So does Drupal pay people? Apparently they do pay some people. Does WordPress pay people? There's lots of discussions about that. I think technically WordPress doesn't pay anyone, just from discussions, but that Matt, who owns WordPress, is at the top, and again, I'm outside of my element here, is paying some people to work for him. I don't know. So, but Drupal, as far as the solution for I don't think there's any other solution that we need to worry about for software. I've met now in person a number of our programmers who are just brilliant. The problem isn't the software. The problem it's not how do we find smarter people or more gifted people or more or that, it's how do we do people together. So I don't really know that much about Drupal. If I have to learn something else, I'm going to do it with WordPress because it just makes sense. Why go to something else that has a small percentage? I'm just going to fire the buckshot. If I could find 1,000 people who would pay me $25 a month to host their WordPress page and keep it secure, and they're just happy farting around at their own stuff, that's good money. I'm okay with that. I'll find something noble to do while I'm collecting their money. Of course, I want to provide good service for them. Widget Factory, you better hurry up with JCE for WordPress then. I will only say to that I have some ideas and some projects that I want to get going that are for WordPress just because of the sheer numbers. If I made a lot of money on something for WordPress, so obviously I have to partner with someone to do that. But if I made a lot of money on something for WordPress, I would still be involved in Joomla. I would still be involved in the community because I really do like it. I could use WordPress income to fund what I do in Joomla. So I don't, I've changed my mind weeks ago, even before Forum for the Future. It's WordPress is a tool and Joomla is a tool. That's how the world sees it. And our tool does certain things, and I think our tool does things great and the best in many ways. But I know some Joomla developers who have said, oh, WordPress does some other things better. And it's okay for us to say that WordPress does some other things better. So we're, a year ago or 2 years ago, I would have felt like I was swearing on my mother's grave if I said, oh no, there's something other than Joomla. But I've had to just come and separate myself from that and realize that it's a tool. It's a tool produced by a community of people that I really love and enjoy, but I've got to keep my life in balance, and I've got to find my significance in something other than what I do or a group that I belong to. Steven says, so Widget Factory, and that's Ryan, I'm guessing, because you do JCE. Yeah, totally. You look at what Akiba Backup has done. Nicholas has Akiba Backup for WordPress. WordPress is such a nightmare to move from one server to another. I'm just so glad that he can do that now. We take a look at OS training. They're Joomla, WordPress, Drupal, other things. It's business, right? So if you're making JCE editor for all the people who are unhappy with whatever it was that it's not Wittenberg, it's anyways, whatever their new editors that they put out, go for it. Make some money, man. Make some money and hire some people to do some coding for Joomla and donate it. Who the heck knows, or not? Make some money. It's business. Steven says Joomla has many built-in features like banner and ad management. Yeah, access control levels, basic contact form. With WordPress, this requires costly plugins. Joomla is much cheaper to use. Yes. I think that someone did a presentation that Joomla comes with things like that you would need to add 20 plugins to WordPress for. So yeah, it's a great solution for that. And one of the things we often say is you can do a multilingual site with it easily, and that's great. One thing is when we're talking to clients, instead of saying, "Oh, I'm going to build you a Joomla site," and they say, "Well, what's Joomla?" And of course, what do we say? It's sort of like, have you heard of WordPress? It's like WordPress, only I think it's better. We need to tell our clients, oh, you need that? I'll build a site for you. I've got the perfect tool for it. We don't need to invite them into the whole, let's all hold hands and let me tell you about Joomla. It's business. Say, yeah, I'll build a site for you. Now, for us to do that, we have to be confident that the project's going to move forward and going to be moving around to support that. Because I can't say to someone, I'll build you a multilingual site. I've got one that will work. I've got a tool that will work great for you. And then a year and a half later saying, don't know how to tell you this, but we're going to have to redo your site because, well, here, watch this live stream where I talked about it, right? So our clients that we're building sites for and doing business for, they don't want the drama. They don't need to know anything. They're saying, here's money for you to do this for me. So we have to be able to back that up. Okay. Just FYI, it wasn't Mary. Oh, it's Valerie who said that. I'm sorry, Valerie. Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, Valerie. It was Valerie who said that about text toxicity, and thanks for giving the little background to it, insight to it. Eric says he agrees with Steven. Also, WordPress is inherently unsafe. Yeah, I'm not sure how inherently unsafe it is, but again, I'm not super colder, and I think if you keep it up to date, I think you're doing all right. And of course, I keep WordPress sites up to date with mysites.guru now, which when Phil went from being myjoomla.com to mysites.guru, I thought, yeah, but Joomla's so great. And then I realized, okay, well, all that opportunity out there, I can start beginning to take on WordPress people, offer them services because I've got mysites.guru, and I can start to learn as well. So yes, yeah. So is it unsafe? Yeah, I don't know how inherently it is, but that's okay. That's just my lack of background, maybe. Let's go back up. Eric, okay. Got to find the line, man. You guys are talking lots. That's great. Joomla has many built-in features, like yeah, agree with Stephen. Mary, yes, Webby design, not Valerie. Mary hates WordPress. You just work the one again and know if you need it. Know that if I need it, I can switch to it, but you prefer not to. I'm with you, Mary. If I need to, I can. There's a community center nearby here, community park, and so they want it. They want their template changed on the WordPress site, and they asked me if I do it. So it was a lead I got through the Chamber of Commerce. So I went in. I started learning of moving around. I thought, oh, how do they do this? Where's the menu? Oh, that's different. But I thought, hey, you know what? I could figure this out, and I'm going to figure it out. So it's not, it's not like learning a new language. It's like learning a new dialect. Valerie says Joomla is not best for small sites, Wix, etc., better for bloggers. Does Joomla's future, its appeal hinge on Jay making a choice, by the way, medium, big biz, and others attracted to affordable open source? Yeah, this is a good question. Is Joomla's future depend on making a choice between medium, big? I don't know. I think it seems to ring true to me when people have said we need to figure out who we're targeting. That makes perfect sense from business perspective. As a community, we have to be business-like. Like the example of the Hutterites that I gave. They're community, but they were making good business sense, good business directions from the base of community. I'll say this, and if it's stupid, I'll own up to it, because I actually went to Forum for the Future with an idea to propose, and soon into it I realized, oh no, that was stupid. That's a stupid idea. I'm not suggesting that. I would say that if we, as a community, were successful in having large businesses spend big bucks so that Joomla could be the backbone of their business, whatever they needed, that there would be an application, or there would be a group of people in our community that would make that happen so that's usable for smaller businesses as well. I mean, one of the great eveners of the internet is that now what the big guys and gals could do in business with respect to broadcasting, I'm broadcasting worldwide here from my basement, suddenly became tools that everybody could do. So even small businesses or someone just starting out in business could do the same thing that the biggest ones are doing. So, but having said that, when you get mom or pop type people, like I just pitched I was just asked to give a quote on a website for just a local little community group that has something in common. And I said, I quoted them the price for the site and then a price for monthly management and security updates and backups and all that. And they replied and said, well, we can't really afford the monthly management, and our webmaster doesn't think that security is an issue anyways. Those are not people that are necessarily going to go and grab a product like that's super complex or has lots of options like Joomla and say, this is the thing for me. Of course, it gives me security and I can compete with the big boys out there. Maybe they're probably not going to. And yes, so to a degree, we as Joomla have to decide, is that what we're going to cater towards? Certainly with the number of options that we have, even just in the articles for publishing an article, and custom fields, and that the number of options that we have, we're not a small, like I want to sell puppies, I'm going to make a website thing, product. Now, for those of us that know Joomla, we think, no problem, I'll install Joomla, put up the template, put a puppy picture on, a number to call, it's no problem. But we know it. And that's where it comes into someone new coming along saying, oh, I need a web page. And first of all their friends are saying, oh, get a WordPress page. It's easy. And it was easy to them. If people just want to sell puppies, they're probably not going to. I mean, they don't need 95% of what's in Joomla. They don't need 85%. The 10% that's there that they do need, they don't know, is there, like security and updates. They might not even be updating their sites. So does the success of Joomla depend on figuring out whether we're going to be for small people or big people? I think it figures out coming up on what we're going to target. And yet there's such different ideas within the community. Targeting educational institutions, small businesses. Do we go after the big bucks of big business? Do we become a headless CMS? Which I just learned in my time away was a CMS that doesn't have like a branded admin area. All the software is there, and then the company develops the interface for their own use. Yes, that's a good question. I probably don't answer that. I probably don't have a good solid answer either. Eric says he thinks Joomla's, make sure I got everyone's comments here. Yeah, he thinks Joomla's fine for small sites, especially if you use simple templates and use standard components and installs. Yeah, exactly, Eric. I agree with you. Steven says he agrees it's crazy to build a 5-page website with Joomla. Okay, so that's the other side. WordPress works great for small, simple projects. You use both WordPress and Joomla in your business. Okay. And Steven says Drupal is hard. You really need to be a PHP programmer. Everything you can do with Drupal can be done much faster in Joomla. Okay, so some good feedback about Drupal there. And yeah, so Eric says fine for small sites. Steven says it's crazy to build a 5-page website with Joomla. So it really comes down to, if you're building a site and handing it over to a client, it might be that wants to just be really simple. Then like this other group, and they actually specifically asked for a WordPress page. They might get lost swimming around in it. Who knows? Liam Hanks says, thanks, Stephen. Thanks for sharing. That was definitely my perception of it, though you haven't used it yourself. Stephen, in all seriousness, can you please elaborate? I'm newish to Joomla. Crazy because it's difficult to convince people to compensate for the work required to create a 5-pager. Okay, so maybe we'll get down to the answer down there. Brian, we're in the same boat with Joomla and WordPress. Brian, sorry, Brian. You also teach Joomla and WordPress for classes. Yeah, excellent. Steven says an example where Joomla excels. You build RosendaleNewYork.com using $99 annual Joomla Shack membership. It has a community calendar, slider template, form, etc. Would have cost $400 plus in plugins with WordPress. Good point. Hey, Weebler, SH404SEF. I sat across the table from Yannick for, I think it was lunch on the last day, on the Sunday, and had a great talk about, it was a great visit with him, but a great talk about open source and when it's okay to use your membership and license on projects. And basically not only was I thinking about what was legal, but what was moral too. So I had a really nice conversation with him. And just that point, Stephen's point there about if you've got a membership and you can use it on these sites because it's open source and the membership's there and you've got lots of things, then you can bring the cost down for a small site for people, and that can be a good source of income. Yes, Brian, Gutenberg, thank you for, that's right. Valerie, been a while that I too have been wondering if I now need to learn WordPress as well. I hope I don't get the bad rap for, Tim did the live stream and everyone's learning WordPress now, but, I've said, some things we talked, I agree, Valerie, and if you, so what I would do, if there's lots of people out there that have sites that need to be, maintained or updated or changed a little bit, or maybe people don't know how to use them, it's a great opportunity to start to just start to dip your toe in there and to see how to use WordPress. This other client that I mentioned, they have a Wix or a Square site that they want converted to a WordPress site, and they said, "Will you show us how to do that?" And I said, "You want me to do it or show you how?" And they said, "No, we want you to show us how." So they might actually be teaching me to learn WordPress so I can teach it to them. So I'm not going to tell them that though. But Eric, agree with your psychology in using WordPress. I would not do it that way unless I had to, but I see what you're saying. Thanks, Eric. Steven says, interesting. I don't know anything about core versus plugins ecosystem for WordPress. Well, Valerie said that. Steven, interesting. Brian, MySites.guru is the best for that. Yes, for maintaining sites, keeping them safe. I'm comforted that some of my favorite tools are expanding to service both platforms. Yeah, that's a good point, Mary. Some of those things that are in there both. Another one is, I think it's Slideshow 3 works in both Joomla and WordPress. I had someone just call me, this is 6 months ago, just a couple miles from where I live. They found me through Google Business. They're having a hard time changing the slideshow on their site, and it was a WordPress site. So I said, let me come over and look. We'll see what it is. I get in there. It's Slideshow 3 or whatever. That's super. I did a live stream on it. Anyways, I said, oh, I know this one. It was WordPress, but I knew it. So, $50 for a home call to show them how to change some pictures and stuff. So that was good. John said he's recommended WordPress for small sites, but you've not moved to Grav for simple sites. Yes, Grav. That's a whole other thing that I don't know hardly anything about. I recognize the name, and I know it's popular, but. Stephen, Valerie, if you're building large sites, Joomla is well worth learning. I know people who make good money working with simple WordPress for lawyers and real estate brokers. And Valerie responds, Stephen, I wish I'd known this distinction, by the way, simple blog and need for rich functionality. I learned Joomla starting 6 years ago to make my own hobby sites evolve to current interest to do for a living. I don't, I've been, like I said, I've been doing Joomla for a super long time. Am I late to the WordPress trough? I don't know. The company that I was, my friend owns a web hosting company years and years and years ago. I was doing stuff in Joomla. They were still coding stuff in Notepad. And I said, you guys really should just use Joomla. You could have a package for making web pages. All this stuff here is feature rich. They started doing that. Then they went with WordPress. So, anyways, you know what? Here's my perspective. I am where I am today. I know what I know about Joomla. It's a tool that is there. It's a great community. I know it better than I ever have before, and I'm confident in it. And I'm fine to charge forward with it. But also, if there's other opportunities in business, and to be fair, you guys, I make money running a YouTube. I don't just make my living off of Joomla. I make money. I run a YouTube channel for a client. I narrate courses. I do some Moodle stuff. Now that's in cooperation with a joint thing with joining him in Joomla. Consulting, stuff like that. So I'm not a 100% all of my income as a Joomla person either. But I certainly I do hosting. I have a lot of Joomla sites that I host. I've built some for people, and I would, if someone called me up today and said, oh, I'm having problems with a Joomla site, can you help me? I found you online. That's great. And I have that happen. So I'm not going to feel bad about maybe what what could have been or what I missed, or maybe I could have done a little bit better, make some sites a little bit simpler and save some time, whatever. I'm just going to keep moving forward because that's the only way to be really happy. Read down here. Webflow is a new web builder, Chuck says. Okay. I don't think I would. I don't know. I would, before I check out everything and anything new, I'm just going to. I do need to keep food on the table, so. personally feel that the lack of users' reviews in Joomla extension directory gives the appearance of not much interest in the whole ecosystem. Also, too, one of the things that throws me off, Tommy, and that's a good comment, is that when I Google for things, oftentimes the results from the search come up with answers for Joomla 1.5. And I know that a lot has happened since then, but I wonder if maybe people looking would maybe find that, would maybe have that conclusion that not much has been happening. People visit the JED, find the extension they want, then are directed to the external download page. Then it becomes an effort to return to make the review feedback. Yeah, Joomla should try to change how this is done to gain more reviews. Oh, that's a good point. Go to volunteers.joomla.org and I wonder which group that would be. But that's a good suggestion. Chuck, I think the bottom line is what you get when you first open Joomla. Core is better than WP. Yes, Brian, I mean Smart Slider 3. That's right. Did I meet your friend Laura Gordon at Joomla conference in Spain? Yes, I did, from New Jersey. Yeah, she was in the same breakout group. Brian would know her too. She arrived on the Friday, very tired. But yes, I did meet Laura. She seems very intelligent and capable. She's at Rutgers University. Rutgers uses Joomla sites. I think they have something like 100 sites, 120 Joomla sites. She mentioned in one of the sessions that she uses mysites.guru to update those 100 sites. It only takes them about an hour now to do all of them. She's teaching it. She's helped with Joomla Days in New York, or run them. Yeah, so I did meet her. Yeah, okay, so you used to run Joomla NYC together. Now she runs the websites. Yeah, exactly what I just said. Yeah, it was really nice to meet her. Yeah, so she was someone I did not know of before. I'm telling you, there's just so many people that I met. I met people from, I'll say where they were from, because there's multiples, but yes, yeah, they're from all over. I don't want to start listing people, because then I don't want to hurt any feelings that I missed someone. But I had a great time. I will give a shout out to Joe Sunny and Allison Meeks, who were the other two Canadians that were there. So, and we've seen Joe in chat here before. So, anyways, everybody, that's my reflections. Those are some of my opinions. I'm going to keep running this channel. I'm going to keep having people on here. Chayton and I are recording a new episode of a podcast this afternoon. Just he and I, we're going to talk to each other about all the traveling that we've been doing in business. Then we have another episode that we're going to record on Friday. So that's all the things. So I don't want anyone to think I'm going anywhere. I'm not breaking up. And I suppose I've said that I will do some other WordPress stuff for people. So I guess maybe I'm not breaking up, but I do want to see other CMSs. Anyways, let's see. Tommy says, you reminded me of a time I searched for a problem and you found an old thread in Joomla forums that someone made a recent request for help, but was criticized for digging up an old thread. Yeah. Listen, no business, no community is ever going to be perfect. There's always going to be problems. That's why there's HR departments in business, and that's why we have a whole code of community conduct in Joomla that's there on the, you can just Google Joomla community code of conduct. Yeah, there's always going to be stuff. Even recently, yesterday, someone's forum post got deleted as spam, but they had actually been pointing out something that was in Joomla, and there was misunderstanding. And so anyways, there's a lot of community that had to happen to get over that. Were people a little pissy in the chat? Yes, they were, and it was not necessary. And yeah, so I certainly not saying Joomla community has to be perfect or else everything will fail, but it just can't be toxic. It's got to be healthy. It's got to move forward. We can't be hurting people. I was going to say we can't be hurting our best people. We can't be hurting our worst people either, or our least productive people. But we shouldn't be hurting people unnecessarily. If we have to do something or make a decision that is painful for someone, then we're not doing it to hurt them, but we're just making that tough decision. So, Steven says, one last thought. Joomla needs to target advanced WordPress developers who need a platform for building larger web projects. Yeah, that's a good idea. And certainly, hey, check out the stuff in marketing. Joe Sunny was involved in that breakout group in their report. I think a lot of great things came out of Forum for the Future and marketing too. So getting the word out there to schools, getting the word about what can be done. Yeah, if we're targeting WordPress developers and saying Joomla, we make multilingual sites easy or easier, we might pick up some people. You get some buzz amongst people. I talked to someone there at Forum for the Future. It was sort of an aside discussion, so I don't want to go into depth for it. But I did hear a comment that the community is sort of non-existent in WordPress. That's a big sweeping statement. I don't know if it fits or not. And that people aren't going to WordCamp days anymore. Now, WordPress WordCamp events still get 1,000 people to them. And but apparently their perception was that numbers are dwindling. It's harder to get people there. And I did point out, well, having 1,000 people at an event is a heck of a lot more fun than 100. And so she chuckled and agreed with that. So yeah, it's not that we're the only place that is having these struggles, but this is the place we're at, and we can move forward there. Chuck says Joomla forum aces are not very friendly. I'm not sure what you mean by aces. Joomla forum faces are not very friendly. I don't know. I'll get you to correct that. Mary says it's a good point and where you're headed. Advanced sites. Yep. Totally. If you can, I've talked about some of my goals for my business and management packages. Yeah, I'm looking for bigger fish. Looking for advanced sites. Looking for businesses that that want that. And Joomla can supply that right now. And it will, if we get Joomla 4 out, if it gets out, yeah, it's going to be great. I have absolute confidence in the code. Absolute confidence in the skill of our coders. I have absolute confidence in, even the people that were running these different breakout groups and how they managed, got the ideas and kept on track and did reports. It's like, wow, these guys are great. So I feel great about all that. Tommy agrees with Chuck for some of them, yeah. Brian says, I misunderstood the review page that was written for the re-engaged because I did miss the note that it was totally doing in the team. So did I say what I meant and did say why I misunderstood it? Just to try to follow that again here, Brian. Misunderstood the review page that was written. Okay, I have not looked at the review page for re-engaging. Because you did miss the note. Oh, on Glip. I haven't looked on Glip. Glip is the forum where people were discussing things. You missed the note that because I did miss the note what it was totally doing in the team. So I did say what I meant and did say why I misunderstood it. I'm a little still confused about that, but Tommy says Ghost. Tommy says that goes perfectly with my comment regarding the forums. That said, lots of good folks there to help. Yeah, one of the things I find about people that will try to help in a forum is I think they need to help, and so if they don't fully understand, or maybe they haven't fully read anyways. I've done that. I've answered questions and someone said that's not what I asked, and I thought, oh, sorry, bad reading. But sometimes people, like on Facebook. famous one from a couple of weeks ago. Someone says, does anyone know of any templates for a bakery? And someone said, you could build one. That was their help. It's like, so there's someone that, I don't know, enjoyed posting, but it wasn't really helpful. Steven says he's going to offer a course, Joomla for WordPress developers, at a WordCamp. Maybe you'll get a few converts. Cool. Brian says, why you were together there. I'm still lost, Brian. Let's see. I misunderstood the review. I guess I'll have to look on the Glip and see. Shoot me an email, or maybe we can talk, because I'm not picking up what you're laying down there. Could just be me though. I have been going to bed early and getting up early. Do you know how long the day is when you get up in the morning? It's unbelievably long. Tommy, seems like better exposure is really needed for the inner working because there's some great things going on. It's one of your upbeat comments you made. Yeah, there are great things going on. And we would like to overcome the zombie chant of must have WordPress. When people say, "Oh, can you build a blog in Joomla?" Because I know you can build a blog in WordPress. There's people that don't know. So it's got such brand recognition. It's like Kleenex. So it's like us trying to sell another brand of Kleenex. People just know Kleenex, or there's just certain products that are known by a name. But what we don't have to overcome WordPress's brand recognition or just what everyone knows. We need to overcome the perception of what's going on in our community. Not only, and the accurate perception in many ways. We need to turn that around, and the rest will come. I will tell the rest will come. The best way. This is what I do. If I see an ad for something and they say we're way better than product B, I look at product B because I figure that's one I need to know about, because apparently they're pretty good. Product A thinks they're good. In the same way, we're not going to. Joomla is not going to grow by tearing down things. Let's grow it by being awesome. Let's give it the Rhonda Bean treatment. Only one person in the chat knows that. I'm not going to explain it. Let's just be awesome. And whoever wants to be drawn towards our awesomeness can be drawn towards our awesomeness. And the news of our awesomeness will spread throughout the land. The only problem is, let's just make sure we're not sitting in a silo saying, we're awesome. Why is the news not spreading through the land? Why is our silo not filled and overflowing? So it takes some balance there. Mary says, I always say that McDonald's probably sells more hamburgers, but that doesn't mean they have the best hamburgers. Exactly. Tommy says, to be honest, the Joomla.org website has so many parts, it's hard to find some of these great gems that are hidden in there. Yes. I wonder, and this is just me, I'm not being critical. I'm not trashing anyone, but we have so many different portals. We have volunteer. We have a volunteer community. I know Jed requires some special sauce, but I have to have so many logins for accessing these different sites. It may be left over from when Joomla wasn't so much ACL, previous versions. Maybe we've just never revisited that. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have heard the story about the woman who would every time she make a roast, she would cut the quarter of it off and set it aside and just cook the 3/4. And her mom was over and saw her do this once, and she says, "Why did you cut that off?" She says, "Well, I cut it off because, Mom, you always cut it off when you're cooking a roast. I saw that, so I always cut it off." And the mom said, "Well, I always cut it off because I didn't have a pan that it would fit in." So sometimes we do things over and over and over again because that's the way we've always done them. Having said that, I do not have intimate knowledge of the makeup of all of those different Joomla sites in the background, and it might and really too. At this point, we can't. Let's get Joomla 4 out. Let's get things going, and then we can be elegant in other things. So there's always a hierarchy of needs. Stephen, good point. Web design. Mary, Burger King makes much better burgers than McDonald's, but McDonald's is much better and makes more dollars. I always have chicken when I'm at those places anyway, so I will take Stephen's word for that. Okay, everybody. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in. It is what it is. And we're just going to keep pressing forward. I don't know what the next Maintenance Monday is going to be. Or Watch Me Work live stream next week. I do know there's a new version of Joomla out, and I haven't done my live stream on updating that. So my wife is babysitting tonight. And so at a very odd time, I'll be live streaming. And that will, I'll get that out there too. Tommy says, is the Joomla.org website perceived by possible future clients as what can be done? Well, it works, but perhaps not the more user-friendly. Yeah, I wonder. A good point that was made at the forum, though, is that a lot of businesses are not looking for a product. They're looking for a solution. So for those of us that are working, we're providing a solution. But in the case of a larger one, if someone said, hey, Joomla's really humming along, 4 is out, it looks great, they've got their act together, they're not fighting anymore, the toxicity is mostly gone, you should check them out. Would they go to the Joomla.org site and check it out? Yeah, maybe they would. But I think at some big level, it's not going to be the big people making the decision, it's going to be someone else, and they'll work on the recommendation of someone else. And you can bet that if someone is recommending software to a large company, there's probably a finder's fee or something like that. There should be. Tommy says, sorry, Joomla, but love you all the same. Eventually, they will want to know what platform you'll be using. Yep, that's true. Yeah, and you'll have to present it to them. That's a good point. Some change coming to the front page of Joomla.org, and that is a few new buttons. One of them being to volunteer, to let people know and belong, because they realize that comes out of re-engage and reignite. So yeah, and then they'll visit Joomla.org. So yeah, that's a good argument, Tommy. A good point. Anyways, everybody, my son-in-law is coming over to cut some tiles for me. So I want to grab some lunch before he gets here, because then I have to get on the Zoom with Chayton. So thanks for tuning in today. Thanks for your support of this channel. I don't usually ask you to share the video around, but if you wouldn't mind sharing it around, I think this is a good topic that might be good for people to read or hear. But that is up to you. And it's not all bad. No, there's tons that's good. Yeah, Vinny says, share the video. Brian, you have a great day. Brian, send me an email just to clarify what you were asking me about, because I do want to follow up on that. Valerie, everybody, thank you. Thank you. Thanks for being part of my life. Thanks for being part of this channel, this community. Until the next time, you know how it goes. Enjoy your Joomla sites.